What if discipline doesn't exist? What if everything you've been told about discipline is wrong? Because think about it. Everywhere you look, there's someone telling you the same thing. Wake up at 5 a.m. Take cold showers. Work harder than everyone else. Stay disciplined. And if you don't have the life they have, it's because you're lazy. Because you lack discipline. Because you're weak. So you try. You decide. This is it. I'm changing my life. You wake up early. You eat clean. You train. You focus. For a few days, you feel unstoppable. And then you stop. You fall back. You lose momentum. And suddenly, that voice appears. See, you're not disciplined. But what if that's not the truth? What if the problem is not your discipline, but your understanding of how your mind works? Because from a psychological perspective, discipline is not what drives behavior. Motivation is. But not the kind of motivation you think. Not hype, not excitement, not temporary energy. Real motivation is meaning. It's having a reason strong enough to move you. Because your brain is not designed to make you successful. It is designed to conserve energy, to avoid effort, to choose the easiest path available. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making, is constantly asking one question: is this worth it? Is this effort worth the reward? Is this pain worth the outcome? And if the answer is unclear, you stop. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing its job. This is why you can binge an entire series in one night, but struggle to read 10 pages of a book. It's not about discipline. It's about perceived value. Your brain sees immediate reward versus delayed reward, and it chooses the immediate one. Every time. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There was an experiment. A monkey, a button, and a drop of juice. When the light turned on, the monkey pressed the button and received the reward. But something unexpected happened. The highest spike of dopamine did not happen when the monkey drank the juice. It happened when the light turned on. In anticipation, in expectation, in motivation. And that changes everything. Because it means this: your brain is not driven by reward. It is driven by the expectation of reward, by the why behind the action. If the monkey didn't know there was juice, it wouldn't move. No matter how many times the light turned on. No meaning, no action. And now ask yourself, what is your juice? What is the thing that makes the effort worth it? Because if you don't know, your brain will always choose comfort. And here is the real danger. If you don't define your own motivation, the world will define it for you. Social media, society, other people's expectations. You start chasing things that were never yours. Success that isn't yours. Goals that aren't yours. A life that isn't yours. And no matter how disciplined you try to be, you will burn out because you're running without a reason. This is why so many people feel lost. They don't lack discipline, they lack clarity. And clarity is psychological. Because motivation lives at the intersection of two systems, your rational mind and your emotional brain. You need both. You need to understand why something matters, and you need to feel why it matters. Without emotion, there is no movement. Without logic, there is no direction. And when these two align, something powerful happens. Action becomes natural, not forced, not painful, but inevitable. Now here's the part no one tells you. You might not want to change, at least not right now, and that's okay. But ask yourself something deeper. Do you want to change? Because that's where everything begins. That small desire to become someone different, to become someone better, to become someone who acts. That is your starting point. Now imagine your future if nothing changes. Same habits, same distractions, same regrets. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, does that scare you? Good. Because fear can be a form of motivation. Not all motivation comes from desire. Some of it comes from avoidance, from knowing what you don't want to become. Now let's go deeper. Your brain operates on two fundamental systems, the hedonic system and the eudaimonic system. The first one seeks pleasure, instant gratification, comfort, easy dopamine, scrolling, junk food, endless entertainment. The second one seeks meaning, growth, long-term fulfillment. It requires effort, sacrifice, time. And here's the problem. Modern society is built to trap you in the first system. Everything is optimized for instant pleasure. So your brain adapts. It becomes addicted to easy rewards. And when you try to do something difficult, it feels unbearable. Not because it is impossible, but because your baseline has changed. So how do you escape this? Not through discipline, through alignment. You find something that is truly yours, not imposed, not copied, not influenced. Something you would do, even if no one was watching, even if there was no reward, even if no one cared. That is your juice. And once you find it, you start small, very small, because consistency is built on identity, not intensity. 5 minutes, one action, one step, but done with meaning. Because every time you act, you reinforce something, not just behavior, identity. I am someone who does this. And that changes everything. But you will still face resistance. Your brain will still fight back. It will say, "What's the point? This is too little. This doesn't matter." And you need to answer, it matters. Because it's mine. That is psychological ownership. And it is one of the strongest forms of motivation. Because when something is truly yours, you protect it, you invest in it, you return to it, even when it's hard. And that might be the closest thing to discipline that exists. Not forcing yourself, but remembering why you started. Again, and again, and again. So maybe the question is not, how do I become disciplined? But, what is worth suffering for? Because every path requires effort. Every life requires sacrifice. But when the sacrifice is aligned with your values, it stops feeling like sacrifice. It becomes purpose. So now I'll ask you something simple, but honest. What is your juice? What is the reason that makes the effort worth it? Because once you find that, you don't need discipline anymore. You need clarity and the courage to follow it.